And we are back. Welcome to my Premier League table prediction reaction for the 2023-24 season. This video is also available as a podcast. You do not have to watch it to get the full engagement out of it. So make sure you check out the podcast side of this channel that we have started posted on this week, including, of course, my and my mates' best possible England squad for Euro 2024. Make sure you check that out if you haven't done so already. But for those of you that are new to this sort of video, I like to do it at the start and end of every season, of course. The whole purpose of it is to see how well I have done at actually predicting the Premier League season. And the way we judge it is based on the difference between where I predicted the team to finish and where they actually finished. So if I bring up last year's table, for example, you will see, for example, I got Manchester City spot on, which scored me 0 points, whereas Leicester, I did to finish 8th. They finished 18th, so that scored 10 points. So obviously, the whole purpose of this series is to get the lowest score possible. And yeah, without any further ado, if you do like this sort of video, please let me know by dropping a like on this video and subscribe to the channel if you're new around here. We will, of course, be doing Euro predictions. Firstly, we're going to do the entire Euro tournament prediction coming up for you in the next couple of weeks. And then, of course, we'll get back round to Premier League predictions once the summer is over. And we'll do another table prediction before the Premier League starts once again. So like I said, make sure you subscribe to the channel, drop a like on this video if you do enjoy this sort of content. And let's get straight into it. A blank table for the end of the Premier League season. Let's see how I got on. In 20th place was Sheffield United, which is exactly where I predicted them to finish. So we're starting off this video with a 0 score. And to be honest, I don't really think there's too much to be said about Sheffield United. I don't think anyone expected them to stay up. They obviously ended with the worst goals conceded ever in a Premier League season, over 100 goals conceded. So they're not going to be very happy about that. But like I said, I don't think anyone's too surprised. They sat their manager midway through the season. It made no real difference to them. And to be honest, you look at their squad, I can't see too many of their players actually leaving and staying in the Premier League. They played like a championship side all season. So back to the championship they go. In 19th, we have Burnley. Now, I was a little bit disappointed in Burnley. They did make a relatively strong end to the season, but it was already too little too late for them. I predicted them to finish 15th. It's not like I predicted them to finish like up in mid-table or challenging for Europe or anything, but from what I saw from them in the Championship last season, they played much better football than the other sides in the Championship last season. And to come up to the Premier League, I said in several of my actual weekly prediction videos, they failed to adapt to how the Premier League's high-intensity style of play sort of happens, and Vincent Kompany has to take a lot of the blame for that. And unfortunately for them, like I said, it was just too little too late. Their style of play ended up sort of helping them out towards the end of the season, but to finish 19th, I think they'll be very disappointed in that. And for Vincent Kompany now to get the Bayern Munich job, it's a very interesting one, because if anything, this season has shown that he's not that capable of adapting to high-level football. So we'll see what happens to him at Bayern. Maybe the fact that he's going into the best team in Germany with a squad of world-class players, he can enforce that style of play he's been trying to do at Burnley with players that are actually capable of doing it, and he'll end up doing okay. But bizarre decision from Bayern, in my opinion, to appoint Vincent Kompany. But like I say, for Burnley, I went 15th. They finished 19th, so it ends as 4 points. In 18th, sadly, it is, of course, Luton Town. 2 points for me on this one, as I predicted Luton to get 16. I really thought Luton would give it a good go, and I genuinely believe that they could stay up, because I knew their style of play in the Championship would actually suit the Premier League. Their sit-in, rely on those long balls up to the forwards, get the wide players in play and put crosses into the box. But unfortunately, it just wasn't enough. And Luton ended up, I think it was only 6 wins at the end of the season. And look, Everton and Nottingham Forest both had point deductions. And all 3 promoted sides have all been relegated. If that doesn't show you the gulf between the Championship and the Premiership right now, I don't really know what does. Maybe the fact that the 3 promoted sides, one of them's getting promoted and the other 2 are competing in the playoff final. Maybe that tells you how much the gap is as well, because even the relegated sides are coming back up as well. It's a real mess for the Championship at the moment. It's not a good look for them. And unfortunately, I genuinely do believe, though, if Luton had their key players fit in that second half of the season, the likes of Obene, the likes of Adebayo and Lokonga and Nakamba in midfield, I think if they managed to keep those players fit, they would have had a much better chance in that second half of the season. But It was too little too late. It wasn't enough to keep them in the Premier League, but hopefully, as a partial Luton Town fan, as a person who comes from a family of Luton Town fans, hopefully they can see themselves hold on to a lot of their key players and make a push to get back to promotion next year. But unlucky to Luton Town, 2 points for me overall. In 17th, it was Nottingham Forest. As predicted, I thought Forest would really struggle this year. The decision to appoint Nuno midway through the season I thought was a bizarre one. Yes, they made some semi-decent signings, but I spoke about it at the start of the season. I wasn't too impressed by Nottingham Forest's signings. They didn't really gel as many people expected. Certainly, they sort of gelled as well as I expected. I didn't think Forest would do much this season. And even with the points deduction, if you add those points back on, Forest still would have finished 17th. They just would have finished further clear of the relegation zone. So, again, I don't really have too much to say about Nottingham Forest other than I'm just happy I got this one absolutely spot on. 0 points for me. I think Forest are going to struggle again next season. I really do. They're going to need a good summer. But it looks like due to the FFP rules and PSR, whatever it's called now, all of these rules around them, it looks like they're going to be forced to sell key players again, with the likes of Hudson-Odoi being linked with Champions League teams, Gibbs-White, and some of their other key players being linked with moves abroad. So I really do think Nottingham Forest are going to struggle next season once again. So expect them for me to put them in and around this position again when we come to the prediction video next season. In 16th, it was Brentford, who I predicted to finish 11th. So 5 points for me on that one. I don't want to sit here and say I was disappointed with Brentford this season because I actually think they played good football. I think, obviously, the loss of Ivan Toney was massive for them in the first half of the season, and then they lost Mbeumo for the second half of the season. Their one sort of like standout player this season was Johan Wissa. I thought he had a fantastic season, and fair play to him for stepping up when Toney and Mbeumo weren't available. They also had injuries in midfield. We always talk about Brentford's midfield, all those Danish players, Norgard and all that lot in the midfield, trying to really organise that team. And it just didn't quite work out for them this season. I think the loss of David Raya and putting Flekken in goal really did hurt them. I think Flecken's had a really poor season in goal for Brentford. So I think that plays into it as well. But I think they can say they're all right with this season. Obviously, they weren't really in any significant danger of getting relegated. So 16th, not the best for them, but I don't think they can be too disappointed. If they lose Thomas Frank, I think that will hurt them. But I'll be honest, I don't get the Thomas Frank hype. Brentford fans, if you're watching this, let me know why Thomas Frank is so good. I think he is a good manager for this level. He is a mid-table Premier League manager. I don't see him being successful at a Chelsea or a Man United or any of the other clubs being linked with him further up the table. I think this is his level, and I think he's doing a very good job at it. So I don't think Brentford fans will be too disappointed with 16th. Maybe just the position itself, but I think they're in a position to push on next season, even if it is without Ivan Toney. In 15th, it was Everton. Now, this is where things start to get a little bit controversial in terms of points, in terms of both actual points in their table because of the points deduction and points for me in the purpose of this video. I predicted Everton to finish 12th. They obviously finished 15th because they had an 8-point deduction. If you put those 8 points back on, they'd have finished 12th, which is obviously exactly where I predicted them to finish, and they would have finished 12th because of the goal difference. They'd have been splitting the tides 11th and 13th due to goal difference. So I'm a little bit frustrated because obviously I have actually called that spot on going into the season. I didn't know Everton were going to have a points deduction, so I'll sort of leave it up to you guys whether or not I should be taking these points based off of where they actually finished as opposed to where they would have finished without the points deduction, seeming as I actually didn't know they were going to get a points deduction. I'm obviously, for the rest of the video, going to put it back to Everton in 15th and carry on from there. But overall, again, I don't think Everton can be too disappointed, especially their running at the end of the season. We've spoken about it enough times. 5 clean sheets in their last 5 home games. Brilliant from them. And the defence, Jordan Pickford, Tarkowski and Branthwaite in particular at the back, really solidifying it for them. If they can sort the goals out, if they can get Dominic Calvert-Lewin fit and firing for an entire season, I think they're in a position where they can even move even higher up the table. So yeah, overall, I don't think they can be too disappointed with 15th, given the points deduction. And like I've already spoken about, they would have finished 12th without the points deduction. So all in all, I think a roundabout fair season for Everton. Let's move on to the side that finished in 14th. which was Wolves, who actually I thought a few weeks ago were actually going to be finishing in the top half of the table. I think Gary O'Neill had an absolutely fantastic season in charge of Wolves. Now, obviously, when I did my prediction video for this season, I don't think I even knew who was going to be taking over. All I knew is that Lopetegui was about to leave. So that's why I did Wolves to get relegated. I thought their squad was disjointed with the sale of Ruben Neves and obviously the departure of Lopetegui. Gary O'Neill has come in and done an absolutely fantastic job at Wolves. Absolutely brilliant. What he's got out of Pedro Neto, Mateus Cunha and Hwang Hee-chan has been fantastic. And some of the young players they've brought in as well, the likes of João Gomez, Ait Nouri, really good performances from them. It's just a shame that their season just sort of tailed off in the last month. Because like I said, they really could have challenged for a top half finish, potentially even a European place, if they'd have kept that momentum going. But again, I think the injuries to Neto, Cunha and Hwang at various stages towards the back end of the season really hampered their chances of that happening. And overall, again, a 14th place finish. I think if you'd have offered that to Gary O'Neill on day one, he probably would have taken it. And I think Wolves fans probably would have taken it as well. I don't know how many Wolves fans did actually think they would go down, but I've seen a lot of prediction videos saying that they would. So to end up safe essentially from day one, fair play to Gary O'Neill. Well done to Wolves. 14th place finish for them, which means it's 4 points on my total. In 13th, we have Fulham, who I predicted to finish 14th. Again, can't really complain too much about that. Obviously, the breakout star for Fulham this season being Muniz, getting himself a Player of the Month award along the way as well. Good performance, I think, all round from Fulham. Again, I don't think they can complain too much. They're not really a side who are capable at the moment of challenging for a top half finish. They've certainly got some good foundations there. They've got some good players. They seem like they're building up something under Marco Silva, but we'll see how they do next season. Again, don't really have too much to say about Fulham. I think they've had a good season for the expectations that they should be realistically looking at. And again, like I say, they're just a solid mid-table Premier League team. And it was another solid mid-table season from Fulham. Speaking of solid mid-table seasons, in 12th place, we have Bournemouth, who for the second season in a row, I predicted to finish right down at the bottom. And for the first couple of months of the season, it looked like I was absolutely spot on. But fair play to Iraola. Not only did he turn around a really poor start to the season, but he stuck with what his plan was. He set himself out on day one. And like I said, it looked like it wasn't going to work. But he stuck with it. He kept his faith in the players. He had faith in his system. The players bought into it. And it's a 12th place finish. And you've got to look at some of the performances of some of those players. Obviously, we know how good Solanke is. But Semenyo, Justin Kluivert, Ryan Christie, Tavernier, even some of the defensive-minded players, Zabrani, who I can never say his name properly, near enough playing every single minute of every single game this season. Even the likes of Kirkesh coming in at left-back. The ability to interchange the goalkeeper between Neto and Travers without it having any sort of drop-off. Really, really good season from Bournemouth. Very impressed with them, and I will happily take the 7-point hit for the purpose of this video because they didn't just deserve to stay up, they deserved to be at least mid-table, and there was a chance, again, they could have even got in the top half come the end of the season. So, fantastic performance from Iraola, a great debut season in the Premier League for him, and fair play to Bournemouth, well deserving of their 12th place finish. In 11th, we have Brighton. Not going to complain too much about this one either. I obviously did them to finish 9th. Roberto De Zerbi has now, of course, left Brighton at the end of the season. It's unclear at the moment where he's going to end up. Lots of links with lots of different places for him. I think Brighton are one of many teams that we're about to get onto that have significantly suffered with injuries this season. You know, we were going into the start of this season raving about 100 million for Evan Ferguson, 70, 80 million for Kara Mitoma, Solly March on the verge of an England call-up, and basically none of those players have been available for the entire season. Then you've got to look at the likes of Enciso not being available and some of the other players in midfield and defence. Even Dunk was missing games towards the end of the season. The one thing I thought was a bit odd is that they kept changing between Jason Steele and Bart Verbruggen in goal. I thought that was a little bit weird. But as always, the Brighton signings have done well. João Pedro has been absolutely fantastic. Again, we're talking about injuries. Estepinian missed a lot of the season, but who they brought in as left-back cover, whether it was Igor out there, even Valentin Barco in the last few weeks of the season has looked decent at left-back. It's just, like I said, I think it's just been a culmination of injuries. They've not been able to field a consistent side for the entirety of the season. So to still finish 11th, to only finish a few points behind the European places isn't too bad for them. Very, very interested to see what happens with them next season, though, because like I say, De Zerbi is leaving. He was the one that was getting everything out of these young players. So who they appoint is going to be critical. Could they go back to Graham Potter? Brighton fans, would you have Graham Potter back, or has De Zerbi fully revolutionised Graham Potter's side to the point where it would be a mistake to bring him back in? Let me know down in the comment section below. But like I say, I think 11th place, like I said, I did them to finish 9th. I can't complain too much about that prediction. In 10th place, we have Crystal Palace. And what an unbelievable job Oliver Glasner has done in charge of Crystal Palace since taking over. If the season would have started when Glasner took over, Crystal Palace would be in the top 4 right now. And I said that last season about Unai Emery, and look where Unai Emery took Aston Villa this season. I'm not convinced Palace can go that far next season, but who knows? If they hold on to the players that they've got, you just don't know. But, you know, I spoke about it earlier in terms of Iraola when he took over at Bournemouth, about instilling that shape and that style of play. It's exactly what Glasner did. They didn't win any of their first 5 games, might have even been their first 6 games under Glasner. But he set out his stall from day one. We're going to play 3-4-3. And you look at the signings that they made in January. Wharton, Munoz. Look how important they are to that side now. Obviously, getting Elise and Eze fit have been massive for them. And then Mateta up front. Those 3, in particular, in these last few months of the season, have been absolutely outstanding for Crystal Palace. At Christmas, people were talking about Crystal Palace getting relegated. And rightfully so. They were teetering on the brink. They had players unavailable. They had no structure under Roy Hodgson. It just wasn't working. And Glasner has come in, sorted out the structure, then got the players fit, then got everything working together. And it's a 10th place finish for Crystal Palace. I did them 13th. I think I've done Crystal Palace to finish 13th for all of the last 3 seasons. So can't complain too much. Again, fair play to him. Let's see if they can keep a hold of Elise and Eze. And maybe, just maybe, they can push for a European place next season, because Glasner has got experience at that level and he's going to want to think he can get Crystal Palace to that level with him in charge. In 9th place, it's West Ham, who I did to finish 10th. So again, can't complain too much about that. They've responded brilliantly to the loss of Declan Rice. I think Alvarez coming in has had a very good season. Obviously, Jarrod Bowen has been on fire. They've spent most of the season without a recognised striker. Bowen's had to play up front for large majorities of the season. Paqueta's been really good, although we may never see him again after what's come out this week. Mohamed Kudus has been one of the signings of the season. Defensively, they've been good. And look, yes, they took some batterings against Man City and Arsenal, but ultimately, again, I think this is where people expected West Ham to finish. I think most people actually would have had West Ham lower than that. I had them obviously to finish 10th. They finished 9th. They were challenging for Europe for the vast majorities of the season. And I'm absolutely shocked that they've let David Moyes go. He delivered European success for them just 12 months ago. And now we're talking about a West Ham that's being taken over by Lopetegui, who left Wolves because he couldn't hack it. Not because he got sacked. He looked at Wolves and went, I can't do anything with this team. They're not good enough. Well, Gary O'Neill has proven that Wolves were good enough. So what sort of person are you to come in at West Ham and say, nah, this team's good enough? David Moyes has got so much out of that West Ham side. And if Lopetegui's coming in and he's losing Paqueta, I mean, I think they could struggle next season. I really do. I really think West Ham could struggle. So we'll see. Another good season from them. Just missing out on Europe. And it would have been good to see West Ham get a 3rd consecutive season in Europe. But unfortunately, it's not going to be the case. 9th place finish for them. 1 point added to my total. Now it gets awkward. In 8th place, Manchester United, who I did do to win the league. And obviously, I'm a Manchester United fan. So obviously, I did do Manchester United to win the league. I said when I made this prediction, I still thought Manchester City would actually win the league, but I thought it would be a lot closer. And if anyone could challenge them, why not have it be Man United? I said Arsenal would be close. I said Liverpool would be close. I said Man United would be close. So if I believed that we would be close, why not put Man United to win it? As a Manchester United fan, I wanted to see Manchester United win it. It was an unrealistic prediction, and I said that at the time. Realistically, City were always going to win this Premier League. But I genuinely believed we could challenge. And I can think of 73 reasons why we've ended up finishing 8th this season. And those are the 73 separate injuries that we have had this season. Now, the Premier League posted a stat the other day. I think it was that we've had 48 injuries specific to Premier League games, which was the most of any side in the Premier League this season. So you have to take that into account when you look at this 8th place finish. You really do, because we have had so many injuries in the key areas of the pitch. We've not had a left back since Christmas. We've not had a recognised centre-back partnership since, I don't know, September. Like, we won the FA Cup yesterday in what was an unbelievable defensive performance from Varane and Martinez, who were playing together for the first time since August. Like, how are you supposed to challenge for anything without your first choice centre-back partnership available for the entire season? Then you've got the left-back injuries. Then you've got the midfield injuries. Then you've got the striker injuries. Like, Sancho goes on strike and then goes back to Dortmund. Rashford's been awful this season. Yet we've still managed to put together good performances. And we've done it in big games as well. People aren't talking about that. We've had good performances in big games this season. Yes, we've had some absolute stinkers. But we've kept our heads up. We've played good football when it matters. And look, we've finished 8th place. We've finished with a negative goal difference. It's not a good Premier League season. But the reason I waited to do this video until today is because I wanted to see how we did in that FA Cup final. And I did believe that we could win it. And I'm so pleased that we did. Firstly, because I'm hoping it gives Erik ten Hag a chance of staying. But secondly, because it now doesn't matter that we finished 8th. Like, we might as well have finished 5th now. It's the same thing. We've still qualified for the Europa League. So I'd be interested to know if you'd have asked me 12 months ago, you finish outside the Champions League places, but you win the FA Cup. I don't know if I'd have taken it, because obviously I think Manchester United should be in the Champions League. But to win trophies in back-to-back seasons, I think that's probably even more important, because we're not good enough to win the Champions League. We're nowhere near good enough to win the Champions League. We're not good enough to win the Premier League. I said that when I made the prediction to put Manchester United first. So we're not actually good enough to win the Premier League, but you never know, we might challenge Man City, because if anyone could, why not us? So I'll take it. I'll take the 8th place because we've won the FA Cup. So that's just the way I see it. Obviously, it's another 7-point hit for the course of this video, but ultimately, like I said, it doesn't matter now. We win the FA Cup, we still qualify for Europe, so it doesn't actually matter that we ended up finishing in 8th place. And yeah, I'm happy now. And I can move on from this season knowing that we've got European football for next season and another chance at another trophy in August. So I'll take it. In 7th place, and speaking of endless injuries, we have Newcastle, who I predicted to finish 7th place. So with that in mind, I'm actually going to sit here and say that Newcastle actually overachieved this season. Because, again, I've spoken about if we had Varane and Martinez available, if we had Luke Shaw available. Blooming hell, if Newcastle had Isak available all season, if they had Joelinton available all season, if they had Shah and Botman available all season, if they had Trippier available all season, if they had Nick Pope available all season, would they be finishing in 7th? I don't think so. I think they'd finish a little bit higher, potentially even up into the Champions League places if they had all those players available all season. So I have to give credit to Newcastle for that. Obviously, Newcastle fans are disappointed that they're now not in Europe because Man United won the FA Cup. And they've got every right to be disappointed about that, because I think they got themselves into a position where they're like, do you know what? 7th place is actually a really good finish, and we've qualified for Europe despite having a really difficult season. And it's a shame for them, because I've got nothing against Newcastle, and it is a shame for them that they now miss out on Europe because of it. But I think they have to be happy with that. Obviously, the risk now is without any European football at all, and 100 million buyout clauses on Bruno Guimaraes and Isak that are in place until, I believe, the end of June. They could lose both of those players, which would be a massive, massive loss to Newcastle. It would give them £200 million to rebuild, but that's 2 core players that they desperately need to keep. So, very interested to see what happens with Newcastle. But, you know, as I said, I did 7th. They finished 7th. 0 points on the tally. I can't complain one bit. And speaking of getting predictions spot on, in 6th place, Chelsea, who I think performed to exactly the sort of level I expected to see them perform. And Pochettino got sacked, which is mental. How can you sack him after this season? They were in the bottom half at Christmas. There was a point where Luton Town were 3 points behind Chelsea midway through the season. Luton have got relegated. Chelsea have finished 6th. It's been a great season for Chelsea. They've also had so many injuries. The likes of, he's not played a minute. Lavia's missed the entire season. Caicedo misses portions of the season. Enzo Fernandez missed portions of the season. And Nkunku's basically missed the whole season. Reece James has basically missed the whole season. But Pochettino got this team together, got them playing, invested all their hopes and dreams in a Cole Palmer season that has been an absolutely standout breakout season for Cole Palmer, having the balls to leave City and be an absolute baller for Chelsea this season. A 6th place finish with an average age of like 22 in their starting lineup is a good season. Why Chelsea have made the decision to sack Pochettino and put an advert out for the Chelsea manager with the requirement being to challenge Pep Guardiola and Mikel Arteta. Mental. This is a young Chelsea team. It needs nurturing. It needs leadership. It had it. Chelsea have taken it away. Mental. Absolutely mental. But I didn't finish 6th, and they finished 6th. So thank you, Pochettino, for helping me get 0 points on that prediction. In 5th place, it was Tottenham, who I did to finish 8th. Obviously, at this point in time, I did not know for certain that Harry Kane was going to leave. But I made that prediction on the assumption that Harry Kane was going to leave. So, fair play to them finishing 5th. Obviously, they made a fantastic start to the season. I think some of the signings they made were really, really good. Obviously, James Maddison, Van de Ven, the 2 standouts. Udogie coming back from his loan, having a really good season. Vicario having another good season. Having a really good season as well, should I say. And I think Ange Postecoglou has done a really good job. I think, we sat here questioning if Ange was good enough, and I think a 5th place finish proves that he is good enough. And I think the fact that he's disappointed with a 5th place finish also proves that he's good enough. He's got the ambition to say, we're a good team. We should be challenging for the top 4. We should be in the top 4. Obviously, they got caught out with their high line. They got a little bit found out in the back half of the season, but I still think a 5th place finish for Tottenham is a good season. I don't think Tottenham fans can complain too much. Maybe they can complain that they thought they were going to finish in a Champions League place. They even thought they were going to win the title after the first couple of months. But I think if you offer Tottenham fans 5th place at the start of the season, in a season without Harry Kane, they'd have taken it. So, well done to Tottenham on a 5th place finish. Obviously, like I say, it's another 3 points onto my total. But not too many complaints. A really good season for them, capitalising on poor seasons from other sides in and around them. For the rest of the video, it gets really annoying because in 4th place, it was Aston Villa, who I did to finish 5th. In 3rd place, it was Liverpool, who I did to finish 4th. In 2nd place, it was Arsenal, who I did to finish 3rd. And in 1st place, it was Man City, who I did to finish 2nd. So we're going to rewind the clock just a little bit and talk about them one by one. So we'll start with Aston Villa, who, fantastic season for them. Well done, Unai Emery. And pat on the back to myself for backing them. I said, if you looked at their starting lineup, they can compete with any team in the Premier League. And that's exactly what they did. They beat Man City. They beat Arsenal. They lost to Man United. That was funny. But they've played some fantastic stuff this season. Ollie Watkins, in my team of the season. Emi Martinez, in my team of the season. Douglas Luiz, very, very close to getting in my team of the season, but he was up against Rice and Rodri. So, being the 3rd best in that position when you've got Rice and Rodri, good luck to you, Douglas Luiz. But what a brilliant season they've had. Fully deserved their spot in the Champions League for next season. And let's see how they do in the Champions League this next season. They've got the pull. They've got a good manager in charge that believes in this style of play, believes in his players. And they now have a position where they can attract even more players of that ability level to the club to make them an even more solidified Premier League outfit and maybe go, do you know what? Not only do we think we can get Champions League again, but if we sign the right squad players, who knows, maybe we could go all the way next season. So, fair play to Aston Villa. By the way, I don't think they will actually challenge for the outright league title next season. I better put that out there. But why not have that belief that they can go that one step further? Very good season for Aston Villa. Fully deserves of a Champions League place. And it's just 1 point onto my total. 3rd place, like we spoke about, Liverpool. Jurgen Klopp's final season in charge. Not going to complain too much about my prediction there. I didn't finish 4th. I sort of, again, realistically in my head was going, Man City are going to win the league. Second, third and fourth are going to be United, Arsenal and Liverpool. And this was just sort of roughly where I saw it going. Obviously, at the time, we didn't know it was Jurgen Klopp's final season in charge. But again, I don't think Liverpool fans can complain too much. If you'd have offered them third at the start of the season, after the season they had last season, I think they'd have taken it. I don't know how many Liverpool fans genuinely believed they would be title contenders this season. They'd lost their core of their midfield. The McAllister and Soboslai signings worked really well. Obviously, Darwin Núñez hit some good form this year. Salah dropped off a cliff after the African Cup of Nations, and they still finished where they finished. Alisson missed large portions of the season, and Kelleher came in and didn't really do much worse. So I think Liverpool have to take this season as a decent farewell tour for Jurgen Klopp. Obviously, they won the Carabao Cup as well, so they've ended with a trophy. So again, we'll see how Arne Slot does in charge of them next season. He's got a huge summer coming up with potential exits of Salah or maybe even Van Dijk. So I'm talking about Trent even leaving. So it's a huge job for Arne Slot coming in this summer to see if he can keep Liverpool in a competitive position. So one to revisit when we do the predictions for next season. But again, can't complain too much. 1 point for me. Liverpool finished third. Obviously then Arsenal finished second. I didn't finish third, as we've already talked about. Realistically, it was always going to be Arsenal to finish second behind City once again. Fair play for them for pushing City as long and hard as they did. And it's just unfortunate for them that essentially their season went in the space of a week. They blew it against Bayern Munich, and I don't care what anyone says. They blew it against Bayern Munich. They should have beaten them, and they didn't. And they backed it up by losing 2-0 at home to Villa, which then cost them the Premier League title as well. Yes, they could have shown a little bit more fight against Man City at the Etihad, but again, I think if you offered Arsenal fans the 0-0 draw against Man City going into that game, they would have taken it. Whereas if you'd have offered Arsenal a 2-0 defeat at home to Aston Villa, they'd have gone absolutely no way what the hell happened. So for me, that's where the title was lost. It was obviously lost in other games as well. They had a really poor run of results over Christmas, but they got themselves in that position again, and it's just gone wrong for them again. But a brilliant, brilliant season for Mikel Arteta. More points than Arsenal have ever accumulated in a Premier League season, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, Arsenal fans, but I believe that's the most points Arsenal have ever got in a Premier League season, and it's also the most goals Arsenal have scored in a Premier League season. So if it wasn't for the fact you're against an absolute machine in Manchester City, it would have been a Premier League title for Arsenal this season. So fair play to them. Well done. Thoroughly deserving of the second place. But ultimately, once again, it was Manchester City's title. As most people predicted, I have to take the 1 point hit for that, which I'm not going to complain too much about. But it's just what they do. They just keep winning. Their squad is too strong. You take a player out, they put a player just as good in. Phil Foden, the Premier League player of the season. Obviously, in my opinion, Rodri was the player of the season. It doesn't really matter. Haaland won the Golden Boot again. They're just too good. So like I said, fair play to Arsenal for keeping it as close as it was. But they got more points this season than they got last season. And last season they won the treble. So, like, how do you stop them? Hopefully, 115 charges will stop them. But we'll see. Like, Pep's going to come away from this season going, we've narrowly won the title. We've lost the FA Cup. We've lost the League Cup. And we've got beat on penalties by Real Madrid. So we're going to need to improve again. And if you already improve on a team that's just done better in the league than it did last season when they won the treble, who's going to stop them winning it next season? Like, it's going to be so difficult. So, again, you have to tip your hat and say, well done, Man City. A historic 4th Premier League title in a row. Obviously, as a Man United fan, I'm hoping that these 115 charges come in and put asterisks over every single one of them. But it is what it is. Man City win again. Now it is time to round off the video by working out how many points we got. But before we get into that, just a quick reminder that these are the ones that I got correct. It is the first time I have ever got 4 correct predictions for the Premier League season. So I'm very happy with that. Sheffield United, Nottingham Forest, Newcastle and Chelsea that we all got absolutely spot on. And what we can do now is we can discuss how we got on in previous years. So the first time I did this in 2021-22, my score was 70. I then had an absolute stinker last year for 22-23 with a score of 85. However, for the 2023-24 season, with 4 correct predictions and 1 predictions, we scored 46 points, which to my understanding is the best score on YouTube so far. I've seen a lot of different YouTubers posting their reactions, and the best I've seen is 48. So if that is the best prediction on YouTube, let me know down in the comments. And yeah, thank you for believing in me, because I think that is a really good score. However, we're still not done. Because if you remember, when we talked about Everton, we said, can we allow ourselves to have the Everton score of 0? Because if we now put the Everton score back in, look what happens. Not only do Everton go to a score of 0, but Bournemouth get a -1, Wolves get a -1, and Fulham also go to correct, which means we have 6 accurate predictions for the season if there are no points deductions this season. This is how the table would have actually looked without points deductions, which is obviously how I predicted the season, because I didn't know we were going to get points deductions. So if you take that score, that's a score of 40. So for the actual season as a whole, in terms of purely points won in matches this season, my score for this season is 40. So let me know down in the comments, should it be 40 or should it be 46? I think it should be 40 because I didn't know about the points deductions. Going into next season, we're going to know about Leicester's points deductions. So obviously I will take that into account when I do my prediction for next season. But you let me know, is it 46 or is it 40? Either way, I still think it's the best prediction on YouTube. So thank you very much for watching once again. If you haven't done so already, drop a like if you did enjoy it. And, you know, and because I got a really good score. Drop a like because I enjoyed the score. Because you enjoyed me getting the score. Subscribe to the channel if you're new around here. Thank you very much for watching yet another podcast on this channel. We're going to have one more podcast before we go into our Euros content when I do my Manchester United stay or go video. That'll be coming out for you, I believe, on Thursday. So a final thank you very much for watching or listening once again. I'll see you very soon.